Good evening. A few announcements before we get started with our devotional for tonight. I want to keep in our prayers some that have undergone surgery, some that are not feeling well. Pauline's surgery went well today, and she'll be in the hospital a day or two, and so we'll continue to keep her in our prayers. Arlene has asked us to remember her in prayer. She's feeling kind of weak tonight and goes to see a cardiologist tomorrow. So keep Arlene in your prayers. Ron and Dicey aren't feeling well this evening either, and so we want to continue to remember them. Also, we have this note. Kevin and Debbie's grandson, Bryce Wright, had a successful pacemaker implantation surgery yesterday at Children's Hospital. He'll be in recovery at the hospital for several days. We're hoping Bryce will get to go home by next Monday. Please continue praying for a speedy, complete recovery for him. We appreciate all our church family praying for Bryce, and that's in Christian Love, Kevin and Debbie. Any other updates on any sick or anyone we need to add? Okay, so with some announcements coming up, there is a sign-up sheet on Deanne's door for Sunday morning adult Bible class teachers. That's been pretty stagnant for a while now, and so I'd like to see that filled up because it's going to be awfully quiet in here for several months if we don't have any teachers. So let's take a look at that. Also, the students that participated in Lads to Leaders at Louisville last weekend did very well. We'll have a recap of the convention this coming Sunday night downstairs after the evening service. Everyone's invited to come down to congratulate and encourage the kids. There will be pizza, salad, and desserts. Students, please bring your awards, certificates, and Art Says It project Sunday morning so they can be displayed for everyone to see. So that will be something to look forward to. There is a couple of wedding showers scheduled. April 12th at Kevin and Debbie's is one honoring Hayden and Susie. And then April 19th at noon here at the Fellowship Hall for Emily and Chad. There's also some invitations, flyers for our singing April 26th here at the building at 3 o'clock. And so you can take some of those and hand those out as well on the table in the back. All right, any other announcements or something I forgot? I don't see Brendan, but we'll let this guy lead singing.
I'm on the run, don't tell anybody. I'm going to sing 453, Love Lifted Me. 453. Just sing all three verses. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, seeking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, love lifted me. 376. We'll sing first and last verses of that.
Open up to Psalm 4 this evening. We use this for our devotional. Psalm 4. Psalm 3 and 4 are companion psalms, we believe. Psalm 3 written as David flees from Absalom, his son, who has usurped the authority from the throne, and he's fleeing Jerusalem. You can read that psalm and certainly see that attitude and that tone to it. Psalm 4 could very well be at the very end. 2 Samuel 18, Absalom is going to die in that chapter, and maybe this is the psalm that David wrote before he sent Joab out to get him. The last verse of Psalm 4 is kind of interesting to me. He says, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Yahweh, make me to abide in safety." That verse is interesting to me because it raises questions in my mind. David says, "You alone give me safety. Make me abide in safety." And when I read that, I ask myself the question, how? Maybe that's how my mind works. It's just not, I understand what David's saying here, and he says it. And it's something that maybe we all say, but I want to know how. How could David lie down and sleep and not worry about dying? How could he, on all the things that have happened to him and everything that's been done during this time with Absalom, how could he not worry as he slept? What did God do to make David feel like he was abiding in safety? And what's interesting about this psalm is I think David tells us in verse 1, a couple of things in verse 1, and again in verse 7. And that's really what I want us to look at tonight. Maybe if we want to know how God allows us to abide in safety, how he allows us to sleep well at night. Maybe the answers to those questions are in this psalm, and I think that's what David gives us. So if you look at the first thing, hear me when I call, O God, my righteousness, verse 1. Some translations will say, answer me, or hear me. The first thing that God did to allow David to abide in safety was to hear his prayers. Hear me when I call. The confidence that David had that God heard him. He doesn't wonder, God, did you hear me? God heard him. He speaks with assurance. I don't think it's a cry of, why don't you hear me? But he's saying, I know you hear me. Hear me when I call. I don't think this is arrogance on David's part. I think it's a relationship. Is there somebody in your life that if you know you need some help or you need something right now, that if you called them, if you sent them a message, they would respond immediately? That's a relationship. Now, there are people you may, on the other side of that spectrum, where you're like, I know if I try to get a hold of them, it'll be 3 to 5 business days, and I don't know if they'll respond. You don't have a very good relationship. But the immediate response, you know that when you call out, you'll find help. That's a relationship, and that's a relationship that David had with God. Prayer was rooted in God's character. He says, "O God, my righteousness." We know from Romans chapter 3 that we can't claim our righteousness, and so David's claiming God's righteousness. He's appealing to God as the source of righteousness. And so our confidence in prayer is not based upon who we are, but who God is. And I think that's what's so wonderful and beautiful. He heard God's prayer. That's how he wanted the first thing, to abide in safety. The second thing is also in this verse, God helped him. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. Past deliverance through past trials. Tonight we're going to talk about in the class in a few minutes, Goliath. I wonder if David thought about Goliath. I wonder if he thought about Saul. I wonder, this is at the end of his life, where he's an old king now. And we're getting close to the end of his life. So is he reflecting on Goliath? Is he reflecting on Saul when he was fleeing from him? Is he thinking about the Philistines and all the problems he ever had with them? Is he thinking about the lion and the bear that he had to fight? And yet he thinks about the deliverance from the past. God took David out of those tight spots and saved him. Romans 8:28. God brings together all good for those that love the Lord and those who are called according to his purpose. We know that God brings forth that which is good for us and out of those tight spots. And so past deliverance fueled his faith. David looked back before he could look forward. And this becomes a very good spiritual weapon that we have when we start to rehearse the things that God has done for us. When we start to think about the things that God's done for us. Deuteronomy 8 and verse 2, God tells Israel, remember what I've done for you. Remember how I led you in the wilderness. Remember how I took care of you. Remember these things so that as you move forward, you'll use that as a motivating factor to be faithful. When we're facing some new trial, what we need to do is remember the victories that God gave us in the past. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. What if we sat down and wrote out all the times in the past God's helped us? Maybe we think about the issues, we think about the problems, and we think about how God has answered those issues every single time. There's nothing wrong with keeping track. The idea of writing down and keeping them in front of us every time God was good to us and every time that he answered our prayers. The same God who delivered David then is the same God that can deliver David now. And so the second thing that David realized is that God has relieved him from his distress. He heard him when he called. He helped him in his need. The third thing is in verse 7. You have put gladness in my heart. He gave him a heart of gladness. Joy that comes from God. Again, that statement, you have put gladness in my heart. It's not because it's self-produced, but God put it there. And that word, the phrase, you have put, is all one word in the Hebrew. And it's used a lot of times in the Old Testament. The first time it's used is Genesis 1:17. Now, if you remember your days of creation, we're talking about the sun and the moon, where God put them in the expanse. He put them there for a purpose. He put it there for a reason. And so that same idea and thought is God put gladness in David's heart for a purpose and for a reason. He intentionally put it there. He made it to be there. And he tells us that gladness and that was in his heart was more than grain and new wine, more than the prosperity of the things that he had. And so joy comes from God, not from the circumstances. Joy in the world is external. Joy in God is internal and eternal. And so true joy doesn't come from what we have, but who we have, and it comes from God. I think Absalom was celebrating his possessions. He celebrated having the wives of David. He celebrated having the throne of David. He celebrated having the riches of David, but David celebrated the presence of God. And that gave him an opportunity to rest. David's testimony is powerful in this progression. God hears me. Present confidence. God has helped me. Past faithfulness. God fills my heart with joy. Present experience. And that's what a life anchored in God is all about. God hears, he helps, and we're happy in him. Tonight, as we think about these things and we consider what God's done for us, to send his son to this earth to die for us, consider the goodness and the love that God has. We offer the invitation of our Lord. Tonight, if there's somebody here that needs to repent of their sins and confess Jesus as Lord, be baptized. We'll be happy to assist you with that. If we can pray for you in anything that's going on in your life as a child of God, we're happy to do that as well. If we can help you in any way, won't you come as we stand and sing the song of encouragement.
He paid the debt he did not owe. I owed a debt I could not pay. I needed someone to wash my sins away. And now I sing a brand new song, Amazing Grace. Oh, Christ Jesus paid the debt that I could never pay.
teacher and you'd like to go prepare for your class, you can do that at this time. We're going to sing 742, When Upon Life's Billows. 742. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one, count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will be singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend, help and comfort give you to your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done.
Please bow with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this day that you've given us. Please let us go to our classes and learn something new about you. And please be with all of the sick people at this time and help them get well. And all the people that may be traveling at this time and keep us safe. And in Jesus' name, amen.
First Samuel 17 this evening, and the corresponding psalm with that, Psalm 144 is what we'll be looking at. After last week's class, I thought it went very well. First one wasn't too bad. I had no idea what direction we were going. We were talking about in the car, and it was, about 10 till, and hadn't even started the psalm yet, and Christine was a little bit concerned that we were going to be here late, and it wasn't good. But she was a little bit wondering how we were going to get it all in. I really don't, as long as we get the story, that's what I want. Get the story in. If we can tie in the psalm, which I think we can, at the end, we will. But really to follow the life of David and learn some things about him through these lessons. Each week, of course, is a new story. And so any leftover, holdover passages or verses we didn't get to from last week, you've got it. You can read it, and you know where we're headed. So tonight, the story that every kid knows. It was. I want to say we have a lot of good Tuesday school classes, but I think they really like the story of Goliath because of how it was presented. I don't know if many of you got to see the paper that was in the hallway or in the stairwell. That's the only place we could find high enough to hang it, of 9 feet for the kids to see how tall Goliath really was. I think one girl asked, how did you get up there to put the name Goliath? And we're trying to explain to her, we wrote it on the ground and then put the paper up there. It's a whole lot easier. But it was neat for them to just understand the size of it. Something interesting about, just as a side note, the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, has him at 6'4". It knocks a couple of cubits off instead of the cubits that are in the older manuscripts. And so there are some people who would say he was 6'4". Now the problem with that, and I'm not getting in too far into the lesson with this, is based upon the armor that he carries. We're given a good deal of information. I know a lot of guys that are 6'4". I don't think they could carry this armor. He had to have been much larger. The older manuscripts have him at 9 foot 9 inches. And so it may have been a copyist error somewhere along the lines where, as they're, because they don't have printing presses, they're handwriting copies of the Bible, of the scriptures, and somewhere along the lines, maybe there's a mark that they didn't make to go for it, make it look like 6 foot, not 9 foot. After all, you have a 6, you have a 9. You can invert those two numbers pretty easy. So I'm of the opinion he was 9 foot. He was maybe of the Anakim, that race of people. The Philistines are thought to have come from that. But we do have him in the Philistine camp, and we have him fighting on behalf of the Philistines and the things that were going on. So let's get into the text a little bit. We have a bigger battle than just size going on here. In 1 Samuel 17, verses 1 through 11. Just to refresh our minds from VBS a little bit, we have two armies, the Philistines on one side, the Israelites on the other side, and there is a valley in between them. Why haven't they fought yet? Why are they at a standstill?
That's how they started battles back then.
There's some fear that's locked into, especially Israel at this time. There's some fear that's locked into them. And the idea of the champions from both sides coming to fight was something that would happen for battles of nations like this. It really helps to keep the bloodshed down. If you send out your champion, I send out my champion, they fight, whoever wins, the losers become the servants of the winners. It may help keep some of the bloodshed down. But now, why hasn't Israel sent out a champion? The Philistines have. And it has a lot to do with the fact that you have two armies, you have one valley, and you have a standstill that's taking place because of the intimidation that's happening to Israel. They're intimidated by this giant that is coming out every day and blaspheming the name of God. Sometimes, when I think about this, if Israel really, I'm not really sure why they were trying to play by the rules of the Philistines. Send the whole army after Goliath. He can't stop them all. If you are God's people and God's on your side and you've got the king that should be God's king, why are you in a standstill? Why are you at this moment of fear? And sometimes when I think about it, it's not just, okay, we're under the rules of engagement here. We're playing by these earthly rules of champions. But sometimes there's this battle that's going on mentally. Israel, could they have beaten the Philistines? I think they could have. I think if they had just crossed the valley and went after them, that the war wouldn't have lasted very long with them. Goliath couldn't have done much to help them. But yet here's this mental, some sort of battle that's going on, some mental block that's happening with Israel, that they can't go out there and fight. I think about that sometimes where some of our greatest battles in life isn't really physical. It's mental. Getting over the mental humps, getting over the anxiety, getting over the overthinking, getting over the depression, just trying to get past those things that allow us to move forward. Israel, they're looking at what's mentally imposing to them, that we can't beat this giant. Well, one of you by yourself probably, maybe not, but all of you together could. And so there's a bigger battle that's going on here than just two armies in a valley. There's a mental struggle that's happening as well. You have any thoughts or any ideas or anything you want to add to that? Because this class is about you all and your thoughts. So, Ed?
Now, if I remember right, this isn't the first encounter against the Philistines, is it?
No.
So, I mean, maybe there's that intimidation factor that maybe they felt like they've lost to the Philistines before, where it's come in with a slight amount of fear. Of course, like you said, they've already been totally got God on their side. I don't know why they hesitated.
And that's why do we hesitate? Is God on our side? Well, we're on God's side, obviously. But if God's for us, who could be against us? With God, all things are possible. And yet here we are, we have this inability to go forward or move forward in things in life because we have this imposing fear. And it's usually not physical. It's some sort of spiritual or mental issue that we're dealing with. That's a good point. I mean, they didn't seem to have this problem before, but now they've got a giant. And we can't get past the giant.
We're not told about a giant before. We think they had never seen one before.
No, the nation knew of them because it would go back to Moses sending in the spies. There were giants in the land. So they've probably seen these people before. Caleb wanted the mountain that was the home of the giants, and he said, I'll take it anyway. See, there's the attitude. I don't care how many giants are on the mountain. I'm 80 years old. I want the mountain. And God gives him the mountain. And so I think if Israel had looked at this instance with Goliath and said, we don't care there's a giant there. We got God. And we're taking this land.
So
They probably had encountered this before or seen these people before. But let's talk a little bit about the appearance of Goliath. Maybe this gave the imposing figure of him. Verses 4 through 7. A champion came out from the camps of the Philistines named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. We're dealing 9 feet 9 inches, thereabouts. He had a bronze helmet on his head. He was clothed with scale armor or chainmail. The weight of the armor was 5,000 shekels of bronze. Any guess about how much bronze that weighs? Yours is absolutely right. 125 pounds. 125 pounds of bronze. He had bronze greaves on his legs, bronze javelin, which may have been more like a scimitar, like a half-moon sword, slung between his shoulders. And the shaft of the spear of a weaver's beam, and the head of the spear weighed 600 shekels of iron. And his shield carrier also walked before him. So we have a champion. High, huge. He's well armored. He has the weapons to kill anything. So much so, he's got a person in front of him that's holding a shield, which would have been a circular shield at the time. And he's their champion. He represents the enemy. I try not to read too much into Scripture. And, here's a story. Here's what happened with the story. But sometimes my mind starts thinking about things like this. How much fear does Satan put into our hearts as our enemy? Could Goliath be beaten? The answer is yes. That's obvious.
Yes.
He is. But the fear of what they see, what they think could happen, is oftentimes what is so condemning to us. How would Satan fit this mold? How could he put fear into us? That we see his influence. We see his lies. We see his weaponry. We see his armor. How would Satan fit this mold of fear as a strategy?
Discouragement.
Just in discouragement?
Well, not just
Well, add part of it.
part of it. Part of it.
To be discouraged. What else?
something we can't overcome.
Something that we don't know the outcome of. So we don't know, if we can't see the end, we don't know what's going to happen. The fear of that. What else?
Intimidation.
What's that?
Intimidation.
We certainly are intimidated. by speaking out, speaking up. We're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight as well.
The anxiety of it all.
Just the anxiety. Anxiety is real. It absolutely is real. It's something that can paralyze us in certain situations. And so just the feeling of that. I try not to put parallels to too much in Scripture, but, David and Christ is a great parallel. I mean, Jesus is the son of David. Goliath is the enemy who's Jesus' enemy. It's Satan. There's this symmetry that plays throughout all this, and I think there's something here for us to learn. The reaction of Israel is in verse 11 to all this. They are dismayed because he comes out every day and openly reproaches the people of God. They're dismayed and greatly afraid. I was interested in what those words meant. Dismayed means to be shattered. So every time that he comes out, Israel's just shattered in what they hear, and they're in awe of him, afraid of him. So you see this giant that's paralyzing these people with his words. He hasn't attacked anybody. He hasn't swung his scimitar at anybody. He hasn't took any blows from them, and yet it's his words that have paralyzed them. And so they're shattered by it, and they're in awe of him. And so I think we got a bigger battle than just little Israel and big Goliath. We're dealing with some mental blocks and issues that sometimes people can't get past. Any other thoughts?
Kind of reminds me of Numbers when the spies went into Canaan. They were still afraid. They were intimidated.
Walled cities, giants in those cities. I hate to say I would probably be in the 10 because just of human nature. But it would be nice to be Joshua and Caleb and walk back and say, let's go. Let's get it. It's there. It's for us. And would have saved 38 years of walking around in the wilderness. David's perspective is verses 12 through 30. He sees what others miss. So now we have David. We were introduced to him last week as he was anointed king, but there's an issue. There's still a king. The people still recognize Saul as king. And I'm not really sure how many people know David is king, other than his brothers and his father and Samuel. But at this point, he has been going to Saul because of why? He plays the harp for him. The distressing spirit has come upon Saul. They've asked, go find me somebody that can soothe me with music. David's the sweet psalmist of Israel. He plays very well. And he comes in and out to Saul. We talked a little bit about that last week. He still goes out to the fields, takes care of the sheep. He'll come in and help Saul. At the end of this chapter, or this section, at the end of the chapter, Saul's going to ask, whose son is this? Or who is this boy? And it confuses people because they're wondering, doesn't Saul know who he is? Okay, how many people does the president know, that comes in and out on a very infrequent basis? Somebody in great authority, great power has no time really to get to know everybody around him. All he knows is there's a guy that comes and plays when I'm upset. And now he's seeing him in a different field. I can't tell you how many times people have saw me out at a store and don't recognize me because I don't have a tie on. I mean, if it's that simple, it's that basic, I have no problem understanding why Saul didn't recognize David. So, David arrives as a soldier, right, to this battle. How does he show up? He's a brother, he's a shepherd, he's a servant. Because his father, Jesse, knows that his sons, the sons are in the battle. Interestingly enough, when he names which three are there, verse 13, those are the three names that were given in the previous chapter about the first three that lined up to see if they would be king or not. He brings food. He's checking on his brothers. Just take some provisions for them. David is faithful in the small things. I don't know if you caught it in your reading. What did he do with the flock? He kept going back and forth to Saul, but when he was sent by his father to leave the flock, he found somebody to take care of him. And so he's just not, well, they'll be all right by themselves until I get back. He makes sure that they are taken care of. So even the small things, the little issues, he takes care of. Now, if you can be faithful in the small things, you can be faithful in the big things. God places us in positions of victory through obedience, not through strength and might. Jesus taught his disciples in John 13 about the issue of washing the feet of them, to be a servant. That's where the real strength lies. That's where the real victory comes in, is when we are obedient and servants to others. And that's what David is here. He's a servant. He's coming as a servant. He's not coming in as a soldier. As he gets closer and he's taking these provisions to his brothers, he starts to hear the people talk about what's been going on. Goliath's been taunting Israel for 40 days. You go back to verse 10. I openly reproached the battle lines of Israel this day. Give me a man who we may fight together. For 40 days he's been taunting Israel. David is bothered by this. It doesn't... I don't know about everybody in Israel's camp, but after 40 days of hearing the same thing, do you become a little desensitized to it maybe? You're still afraid of the giant because the intimidation is there. But does it bother you anymore that somebody's blaspheming God? I don't know. Jeremiah 6. Let's see. Jeremiah 6:15. Jeremiah says this. Were they ashamed because of the abomination they have done? They were not ashamed at all. They did not even know how to blush or feel dishonor. Therefore they shall fall among those who fall. At the time that I will punish them, they shall be cast down. Is it possible for people to become so desensitized to sin they don't even blush at it anymore?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's David's bothered by what he hears coming from Goliath, that he's blaspheming their God. David's question in verse 26 reveals his heart. What will be done for David spoke to the men who were standing by, saying, what will be done for the man who strikes down the Philistine and take away the reproach of Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should reproach the battle lines of the living God? That statement indicates that David's not measuring Goliath to himself or to Saul or to his brothers. He's measuring Goliath against God. And who is this guy? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that wants to stand here and put himself against God? Sometimes what the world tolerates, faith needs to confront. And what we have here is a young man who's faithful in a lot of things, and his fresh eyes and his ears to this situation. Sometimes we can become desensitized to what's going on around us, and maybe somebody needs to come along and say, wait a minute, why are we not standing up for something? Why are we not doing this? Why are we so slow to stand against sin? Why are we so slow to speak against what evil's happening? David's bothered by this, and he's seeing something that others are missing. It's not, they're looking at the physical. He's looking at somebody who's trying to say they're better than God. And David brings that into play here for us. Any thoughts or anything you want to add to that? 31 through 37, faith is rooted in experience. David told Saul, the words which David spoke were heard. They were told to Saul. Saul sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail. On account of him, your servant will go and fight the Philistines. All right. So, David, why can you go and fight this Philistine? Verse 34. Your servant was shepherding his father's sheep, and the lion and the bear would come and take a lamb from the flock. I would go out after it and strike it and rescue the lamb from its mouth. I don't know if I've ever caught that before. To think the lamb is in the mouth. Not, here it comes, I'm going to kill it before it gets to the lamb. But it's taken the lamb. Now, it's just one lamb. What difference does it make? What did Jesus say about 100 lambs? If you lose one, you've lost too many. That David's very practical, very literal in this. You lose one, you've lost too many. So, I rescued lamb out of its mouth. It rose up against me. I would seize it by its beard, strike it down, put it to death. Your servant struck both down the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has reproached the battle lines of Israel. Psalm 4. Maybe David remembers past victories. Maybe he thinks about this. As we said in Psalm 4, he's taking these. Let's make an assumption real quick. When David killed the lion and the bear and protected the lambs, who was around? Probably nobody, besides God. Probably nobody. In these moments where he has these little victories, and they're private victories, I don't know if he went home and said, Dad, I killed a lion today. I don't know if he made a big deal about it. Those are things I can't get from the scripture. But when he had these victories, when nobody else was around, here's a public battle. And sometimes those little private victories, we learn that we're stronger than we really think we are. When it comes time to stand up in public, when it comes time to take on, you put on the whole armor of God and stand against the wiles of the devil. And we know that we can do this because in those little moments of our life, we've learned that we're stronger than we really are. That we're able to continue on. That all those little victories, where my faith didn't fail, where I was reminded of God's goodness, all those little times have led up to this time where maybe I've got to stand against a public sin. You think about Paul confronting Peter to his face in a very public way, because Peter refused to eat with the Gentiles when the Jews came from Jerusalem. To have that moment to stand up in public and say, this isn't right. How many times have we done that? With anybody, with anything. Because we don't have that faith that's rooted in the past, maybe as strong as we should. God gets the credit for everything David does. Verse 37, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the hand of the lion and the bear, he will deliver me from the Philistines. Our confidence in God grows when we remember his past faithfulness. Psalm 4 ties in again. We remember the good things God's done. Our motives, though, have to be pure. Why do we do what we do? It's for God's glory. And David says, my confidence and my victory is going to be because of God. Comments?
Going back to the moment before he goes to Saul, and in 28, it says, now Eliab his brother heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Was it not but a word? It says a lot about his brother, that the first thing he says to David is, why are you even here?
And his brother assumes he's there because David's arrogant and he's wicked and he just wants to come down and watch what's happening. It shows the attitude, and that's probably a good reason Eliab wasn't chosen king. But if you want to talk about man after God, that God's heart, he sees that God sees his heart. That maybe gives us some insight as to why he wasn't chosen. Good point. Verse 38 through 51, God wins with unlikely means. Verse 39, David was given Saul's armor. Who's taller, Saul or David? Saul, head and shoulders above everybody. David was but a youth, and so probably not as tall, not as built as Saul. And so he gave Saul his armor. He says, I can't go with these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. Not tested, didn't fit, wasn't comfortable. He doesn't know how any of it works. Well, let me ask you this. Can you fight the battles with Satan with your parents' faith? No. Can't fight it with anybody else's faith. You can't fight it with borrowed faith. Can't fight spiritual battles with anybody else's faith. And so when we go into battle, we can't say, well, because my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents were faithful to the Lord, I'll be okay too. It doesn't work that way. Our faith is our own. David's armor, or Saul's armor wasn't David's. What was David's weapons? I heard about 16 different answers there. What? How much did he take? Let's go. First thing, sling. 5 stones, and? And?
God.
Nope. Not yet. Did you read? Well, yeah, his pouch put stones in. He picked up his staff. He's got a staff with him. He's got, yeah. And so you come to me as verse 43, he said, am I a dog? You come to me with sticks. And so he's got a staff, he's got his sling, he's got his stones, and now he's got God. And those are his weapons. God is the most important thing here, of course. His faith in God and his trust in God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, verse 6, our faith and our trust in God. When you think about the armor God gives us in Ephesians 6, is any of it actual literal armor? Do you have a literal helmet God gives you? No. But they're all based upon faith. And so David's weapons were compared to Goliath's, not equal, but most importantly, he had his trust in God. We have a little bit of trash talking, verses 45 through 47. And I really like David's part of it. Goliath said, you come to me as like a dog and all this stuff. David said, you come with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the battle lines of Israel, whom you have reproached. Now I love verse 46 of them all. This day Yahweh will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down, remove your head from you. That is pretty strong language. I will give the dead bodies of the camp of the Philistines this day to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Ed?
Without God, he knows he's got God, but without God, you think, I get the picture of like a mongoose fighting a cobra. I mean, David's going to be quick, he's going to be fast. This monster's carrying 500 pounds away. He can't even run. You would think there's a little bit of some physical thinking that behind this trash talk.
You would have thought Israel would have thought of this before this. That he's slow. He's got to be slow. Big men are not athletic. But David's he's got a whole different take on this. I'm cutting your head off today, and you're going to die. And so the battle belongs to the Lord. The victory is his. And so with one stone, with one swing of that stone, we have one fallen giant. What did God use to kill the giant? It wasn't anything impressive. It was a small, one smooth stone. I suppose you've heard this before. You probably have heard it from me. Why did he have 5 stones?
In case Goliath had relatives.
He's got 4 brothers.
David later kills.
David, not David, all of them, but a couple of them. But he's got 4 brothers. And what if they are somewhere in the back of the line? I think David, at least in my mind, I like to think David expected to kill them all. It wasn't just Goliath he was going to finish. He was going to take them all. And sometimes we see one giant in our way, and we think if we can just get past that, everything will be smooth sailing, when there are oftentimes giants still to come. Ed?
Well, the accuracy of his weapon lets me think that he'd probably been practicing this tool when he was being shepherd of the flocks. Just to have something to do, he was probably picking out targets to sling at. I'm sure just because it was the first blow, he was probably pretty deadly with this thing.
I think he was. He hit his target right there in the forehead. Stone sunk into Goliath's head. He fell forward, because you get that much momentum going forward. They're coming at each other, and you got that momentum coming towards you, and Goliath falls forward. The text tells us that David didn't have a sword in his hand, so he took Goliath, and what did he do? He cut his head off. Did exactly what he said he was going to do, and carried it back to the camp. And by the way, it's not the last time you read about Goliath's sword. You pick that up a little bit later as well. God doesn't need impressive tools. He just needs us to surrender to him to be victorious. The courage becomes courageous then in verses 52 through 58. After Israel sees David's victory, they go after the Philistines. They pursue him. Why didn't the Philistines just say, okay, we're your servants? I thought that was the whole point of the champions. Never was the point of the champions, was it? That was to wipe them out. And so David, in his faith, awakened the courage of the rest of the people. Where we started the chapter, where they're just frozen and they're isolated in fear, one man's faith pushed the whole nation forward. And if that can happen with David, it can still happen today. When one person stands up, a lot of people stand up. I can't tell you how many times over the years I'd run into people in the street in Fairfield after maybe I sent an article to the editor about some issue that was going on in town, and they say, we liked it, we agree with you 100%. I'm like, well, why don't you send one too? Oh, no, I can never do that. I'm like, well, let's go. So that's one person's faith. Oftentimes, everybody feels the same way. All right, any other thoughts there? Any on the story?
How much do you think it helped that he killed a lion and a bear, basically with his bare hands? Which would you rather face, a giant or a lion or a bear?
Well, probably the giant, because I could run away from him. No, that was his whole argument. If I can kill a bear, I can kill this guy. It wasn't, but that's the attitude. You think about the attitude David had as we go through all this. Is there not a cause? He asked that question. Is there not a cause that look what he's doing. Let's stop this. And yet Israel just continues on with it, which is probably a sign of bad leadership, but we could put some of the blame on Saul. All right, let's roll over to Psalm 144 real quick. Finish up with this. There's no heading that says this was on the occasion of David killing Goliath, but some of the rabbis like to attach that idea to it. And so your heading says Psalm 144, Psalm of David. But if you read it, in the first few verses, blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle, my loving kindness and my fortress, my stronghold, my deliverer, my shield, and he in whom I take refuge, who subdues my people under me. I can see the battle in my mind. God had trained David before the battle. And there are times in our lives where, I think about David. He doesn't show up to the battlefield in 1 Samuel 17 and suddenly he gets brave. I see him, he was prepared in the field. And there are seasons in our lives where we wonder what's happening, and they're actually training grounds. They're actually moments where we're seeing God work in our lives to prepare us, to get us ready for the next step. And so I see the fingers that were prepared for battle. You trained my hands for war. Blessed be the Lord, my rock. I don't know if he'd scribbled Yahweh on that thing and threw it. But, that rock that flew, that was the Lord doing that. And so I pictured the whole thing in my mind. He's my shield. Goliath had a guy out there carrying his shield. God's my shield in this. God is the true source of victory. He's my rock, my deliverer, in whom I take refuge, all the way down through here. David didn't defeat Goliath. The Lord defeated Goliath. He used David to do it. And so God is the true source of victory. And the same is true for us today when it comes to our salvation. Jesus won the victory for us. And then God deserves the praise after the victory. Verse 9, O God, I will sing a new song to you. Upon a harp of 10 strings I will sing praises to you, who gives salvation to kings, who sets David his servant free from the evil sword. Set me free and deliver me out of the hand of the sons of a foreigner, whose mouth speaks worthlessness and whose right hand is a right hand of lying. And then the blessings that would come from God, that our sons would be grown up plants in their youth, our daughters as corner pillars fashioned for a palace. Our granaries would be full, Psalm 4, furnishing every kind of produce, and our flocks would bring forth thousands and 10,000s of fields outside. So I don't think Psalm 144 is David writing a victory speech, but what he is writing is, I'm exalting you, God, for your goodness and your love and your victory and where you've brought us. Giants can fall, but the glory belongs to God. And so I have a couple of general lessons for you, and then all your comments. Giants are real, but so is God. And there are things that will happen in our lives where we think we can't get past. But God is bigger, and he is greater. And so faith doesn't deny the problems, it just defines it and lets God handle it. Preparation happens in private. Don't despise those times in your lives where little things are happening. God's maybe preparing you for something greater. And your faith can influence others. If you find the courage to stand up and be strong, others will find the same courage. And so take that for you. Any questions or any thoughts that you'd like to add to this? It's a lot more than a Bible story, a lot more than a VBS story, for sure. It's a good one. And there's a whole lot more we could pull out of it, but that's what we have for tonight. If there's nothing else, let's have a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed. Our mighty Father in heaven, we are so grateful for the victory that we have through Christ. We're thankful that you have given him to us to provide a way of salvation. As we go through this life, Father, help us face the giants in our lives without fear, knowing that you are in control of all things. We praise you and we give you the glory for the blessings and the answers that you have given us. Continue to be with us and continue to